Hey everybody, this is Jake. Welcome back to the Plugged In Vodcast. I'm sitting here alongside Paul Acey, the one, the only. Today, we're talking about spy movies, but in particular...
Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation. Just came out.
Nation.
Making a lot of money at the box office, and we've both seen it.
We did watch Rogue Nation. Not together.
No.
Because I didn't want to be awkward. Besmirched by your thoughts.
Well, you wouldn't want to be
my thoughts while you're sitting next to me.
You wouldn't want to be blinded by my little curse-counting light either.
So
you know. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Rogue Nation. One of the things that I noticed about the movie was sort of the idea of relativism. When you watch the movie, you'll notice that once again Ethan Hawke is being chased by his own government.
Ethan Hunt.
He is being chased by his own government. And this sort of happens, it seems like, in almost every movie. Whereas the government doesn't trust him, there are forces behind him that are out to get him. He's always trying to do the right thing, and it never seems to pay off for him until the very, very end of the movie.
Yeah.
And you sort of get...
5 times now.
Exactly. You sort of get the sense as this movie sort of unpacks that a little bit. He meets this other agent as he goes along, and this agent named Ilsa, right?
Correct.
Ilsa Hawke. She, no.
Ethan's sister.
So she sort of says, the difference between the good guys and the bad guys really isn't very much. It depends on where you're sitting.
Yeah, and what you choose to believe.
Right, exactly. And my take, one of the things that really appeals to me about these movies is that Ethan Hunt is a hero because he really doesn't buy into that logic. You can see that he's been burned time and time again, and yet he still has sort of this idea of a greater good that he's serving. Even if his own government doesn't necessarily... embrace that greater good all the time.
Right.
What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that was what they were going for, because that was the tension they were trying to play on between him and our villain in Rogue Nation. Is that the villain character was somebody who was burned by a government, and so decided he was going to decide. Who was the government to decide how the right way to do this was? He had a better idea of the right way to do this, and
exactly.
And so that was his motivation, whereas Ethan Hunt, he's been burned, but he holds this idea that there is still a right and wrong.
Right.
And that was actually my disappointment with the movie, was not that Ethan Hunt had knew what was right and wrong, but I wanted them to wrestle with it a little bit more. I felt like they paid lip service to the idea that maybe this is all in Ethan's head.
The time has come to dissolve the IMF. Now I want you to choose your next words very carefully. Where is Hunt?
Last I heard, he was tracking the syndicate.
How come the CIA has never discovered any intel regarding this syndicate?
Do you want the polite answer or the truth?
Maybe, does the syndicate exist? Does it not exist? Is it his fabrication to justify his actions? Talking about that perspective. And I really wanted them to mess with our heads and play around with, and I thought they were going to do it. Like, so many times they were teasing me. Like when he goes to the opera and he sees Ilsa, but Benji doesn't.
Right.
And he's like, what woman are you talking about? I was like, this is what I wanted. This is like, does she exist? Does she not exist? Is Ethan making this up so he can maintain a facade in his own mind? Has he been burned so many times that he has to create a facade to be able to figure out what's right or wrong?
That would have been a very interesting movie. A totally different sort of movie. It would have been
a different sort of movie.
But I do think that it was sort of playing around even within that opera scene that you're talking about, because for those of you who've seen it, you know that you've got Ethan, you've got Ilsa, and then you've got these other 2 spies that are also gunning for various people, and you don't know who's gunning for who. There's a real uncertainty as far as whose side who is on.
Right.
And I think that's about as deep as the movie got in terms of what you wanted to sort of
it really
deal
is.
with. Yeah. I don't think that there was any doubt within the movie that Ethan was going to make the right decision. There was no sort of wrestling in his mind over the morality of his own government. It was just always sort of, this is what Ethan does.
Yeah. And he knows what's best. Well, and bringing us full circle to that relativism, as it was still, and they did pay lip service to this, it was still Ethan sees the only way that's the right way to go.
Right.
And I think that appeals to us because that's how we each feel in our day-to-day life. Like where we see a set of circumstances that are either facing us or facing others, and we're like, this is the right way to go. And then when other people don't see that, to us it's not just, oftentimes I think, it's not just, oh, they saw it differently. It's, ooh, they saw it wrong.
Right.
And so that's that tension between Ethan and the villain and even his own government is each of them thinks, no, that person sees it wrong.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, though, because in a way, the world around us, I think you're absolutely right, that people really do make their own decisions sort of on that right and wrong basis, and yet the world around us really does feel relative. I think that a lot of people would really resonate with what Ilsa was trying to get across, that are there really good guys and bad guys? Or, it gets into the whole, it sort of taps into the whole anti-hero thing on TV in a way. Right. It gets to our own cynicism of our government and our leaders and all that kind of stuff. And yet, you have beyond all that, there's sort of this clarion call that yes, there is good, there is truth, there is right, and we always need to be pursuing it, even as the world around sort of falters in that way.
Right. And I think that is I think we've seen that, not just in this movie, in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, but even with James Bond in recent years with Daniel Craig, is he's wrestled with, the government stuff being shadier maybe than he would like it to be. And so how does he maintain a moral compass? And I think that's something we're all wrestling with.
Yeah, I do too.
Whether we believe in God or not, who determines what's right and wrong? And that's easier for somebody that believes in God to say, I believe in a moral authority, but when there's not a moral authority that you adhere to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because we've seen over and over again that people who sometimes we really like, really respect, make some very poor decisions in their lives. We know that things aren't necessarily as clear-cut sometimes when you're in a boardroom or what have you, where sometimes some really difficult, even tragic decisions are made. But I do think that there is sort of a sense that we're all sort of looking for that right. I think that we all sort of have this instinct that there is a right and wrong out there. It's just a matter of how we find it.
Right. So where do you find it? Do you think that Ethan Hunt is crazy, that it is kind of it is perspective, he doesn't know? Or do you think that beyond the clutter of our own thoughts, beyond the clutter of the world, that there is a right way, and it's a matter of us tapping into what that is versus deciding on our own? What do you think? Let us know.
Tell us.
There's a comment section below for a reason. It's because we want to talk to you. And so we'll see you there.
See ya.